Captain Zethkalar stretched his forearms and checked the navigation display one more time. The massive exploration ship Nexus Prime had been traveling for 3 months to reach this empty corner of the galaxy. His crew of 200 aliens from 12 different worlds was getting restless. They had signed up to map new star systems and maybe find some rare minerals. Instead, they found nothing but empty space and old rocks floating around dead stars. "Captain," called his second-in-command, a tall blue creature named Ylanmoth. "We're approaching the final system on our survey list. After this, we head home." Zethkalar nodded with all 4 of his heads. The Galactic Confederation paid well for these mapping missions, but they were boring work. Most of the galaxy had already been explored. The only places left were the dangerous zones near the galactic center, or these empty regions at the very edge of known space. The ship's sensors began beeping as they entered the outer edge of the star system. Zethkalar looked at the readings and frowned. There was definitely a star here, yellow and warm like many others. Several planets orbited around it. Nothing special so far. But then the energy readings started coming in. "Captain," Ylanmoth said, her voice tight with concern, "I'm detecting artificial energy signatures throughout this system. Very strong ones." Zethkalar felt his stomach drop. Artificial energy meant technology. Technology meant intelligent life. But according to all their maps and surveys, nothing lived out here. This was the edge of nowhere. Could it be ruins from the old ones? He asked hopefully. The old ones were an ancient race that had disappeared long ago. Sometimes explorers found their abandoned cities and technology. "No, sir," replied the sensor operator, a small green creature with large eyes. "These readings are active. Someone is using this technology right now." The bridge fell silent. Every member of the crew knew what this meant. They had found a new intelligent species. This was the kind of discovery that happened maybe once every 1,000 years. It was also the kind of discovery that could be very dangerous. "Take us closer," Zethkalar ordered, "but keep our shields up and weapons ready." As the Nexus Prime moved deeper into the system, the sensor readings became clearer. There were definitely artificial structures here. Space stations, mining platforms, and what looked like defensive satellites. But the technology was strange. It used materials and energy patterns that the Confederation had never seen before. "Captain," the communications officer called out, "I'm detecting multiple spacecraft moving in our direction. They're still far away, but they're definitely coming to meet us." Zethkalar studied the tactical display. 5 small ships were approaching from different directions. Their design was unusual, all sharp angles and flat surfaces instead of the smooth curves that most civilizations used. They looked primitive, like something built by a species that had just learned how to work metal. "What kind of weapons are they carrying?" he asked. "That's the strange part, sir," the weapons officer replied. "I'm not detecting any energy weapons at all. No plasma cannons, no particle beams, nothing. But they do have some kind of projectile launchers." Zethkalar relaxed slightly. Projectile weapons were what primitive species used before they learned to harness energy. These aliens might be new to space travel, which meant they probably weren't dangerous. "Open a communication channel," he ordered. "Let's introduce ourselves." The main screen flickered to life, showing the interior of one of the alien ships. Zethkalar was surprised by what he saw. The alien was clearly intelligent, wearing some kind of uniform and sitting in what was obviously a command chair. But the creature looked so strange. It had only 2 arms and 2 legs, pale skin, and hair growing only on the top of its head. Most shocking of all, it had only 1 head with just 2 eyes. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Force," the alien said in a calm, clear voice. Her translation device was working perfectly, which suggested their technology wasn't as primitive as it looked. "You are entering human space. Please state your intentions." Zethkalar blinked in surprise. The alien, this human, was speaking to him as if she was in charge, as if this was her territory. But humans weren't part of the Galactic Confederation. He had never even heard of them before. "Greetings," he replied, trying to sound friendly. "I am Captain Zethkalar of the Confederation exploration vessel Nexus Prime. We are here to map this region of space. We had no idea anyone lived here. This is first contact between our peoples." Admiral Chen smiled, showing her white teeth. "First contact for you, maybe. We've been watching your people for quite a while. Welcome to the Sol system." The human ships had now formed a loose circle around the Nexus Prime. Zethkalar noticed that despite their primitive appearance, they moved with perfect coordination. Their flight patterns were precise and efficient in a way that suggested excellent training and communication. "You've been watching us?" Ylanmoth whispered. "How is that possible?" Admiral Chen seemed to hear her even though the question wasn't directed at the screen. Your Confederation isn't as good at hiding its activities as you think. We've been tracking your ships and monitoring your communications for several decades now. We know about your government, your military, your trade routes, and your technology. A chill ran through the bridge crew. If these humans had been watching them for decades, they clearly had technology that was much more advanced than their ships suggested. But how was that possible? Their weapons were primitive projectile launchers. Their ships looked like they were held together with metal plates and bolts. Perhaps we could arrange a more formal meeting, Szeth Kalar suggested carefully. Our peoples have much to learn from each other. Of course, Admiral Chen replied. You're welcome to visit Earth. Fair warning, though, you'll need environmental suits. Our world is a bit harsh for most galactic species. She gave them coordinates for the third planet in the system. As the Nexus Prime changed course, Szeth Kalar studied the sensor readings of their destination. What he saw made him deeply uncomfortable. Earth was a nightmare world. The gravity was almost twice what most civilized species could handle. The atmosphere was full of poisonous oxygen. Violent storms raged across the surface. The oceans were filled with salt water that would burn the skin of most aliens. Volcanic activity and earthquakes were common. How could any intelligent species evolve on such a dangerous planet? And how could they possibly call it home? Sir, the sensor operator called out. I'm detecting thousands of artificial structures on the planet's surface. Cities, transportation networks, industrial facilities. This world isn't just inhabited, it's heavily populated. Szeth Kalar stared at the readings in disbelief. These humans had built a thriving civilization on one of the most hostile worlds he had ever seen. What kind of creatures were they? As they approached Earth, Admiral Chen's voice came through the speakers again. Captain Szeth Kalar, we've prepared landing coordinates for you. Our scientists are very excited to meet you. It's been a long time since we've had visitors from the inner galaxy. The way she said inner galaxy made it sound like she was talking about some distant, less important place. But Earth was at the very edge of known space. These humans lived in the middle of nowhere, on a world that should have killed them long before they developed intelligence. Yet somehow, they were treating the arrival of an advanced Confederation starship like it was just another ordinary day. Szeth Kalar was beginning to realize that first contact with humanity was going to be very different from what anyone had expected. The shuttle ride down to Earth's surface was terrifying. Szeth Kalar gripped his seat with all four hands as violent winds buffeted their craft. Lightning flashed outside the windows and rain hammered against the hull like bullets. His environmental suit felt heavy and clumsy in the crushing gravity. Is this normal weather? He asked their human escort, a cheerful woman named Dr. Martinez. Oh yes, she replied casually. This is actually pretty mild for this time of year. You should see what our hurricanes look like. Ylanmoth, who was sitting across from him, looked green around her gills. She was the expedition's chief scientist and had studied hundreds of alien worlds. I've never seen atmospheric conditions this violent on any inhabited planet, she whispered. The shuttle landed at a facility near what the humans called New York City. Through the windows, Szeth Kalar could see massive structures stretching up into the storm clouds. Millions of humans lived in this one city alone, walking around in the deadly atmosphere like it was perfectly normal. Dr. Martinez led them into the research facility. Chattering happily about human history and culture, she seemed completely unaware that she was living on what any sane species would consider a death world. Dr. Ylanmoth, she said, I understand you're interested in human biology. We've set up a full medical examination room where you can run any test you'd like. Ylanmoth nodded weakly. She had been looking forward to studying these aliens, but the trip down to the surface had left her shaken. The gravity here was making it hard for her to even stand upright, despite her powered assistance suit. The first shock came when Dr. Martinez casually lifted a piece of equipment that weighed over 200 pounds. She moved it like it was made of air, chatting the whole time about how excited the human scientists were to meet aliens. How are you doing that? Ylanmoth asked in amazement. Doing what? Dr. Martinez looked confused. That equipment must weigh more than I do. You just picked it up with one hand. Dr. Martinez laughed. Oh, this old thing? It's not that heavy. Here, want to try lifting it? Ylanmoth's suit servos whined as she tried to move the device. Even with mechanical assistance, she could barely budge it. Meanwhile, Dr. Martinez was casually holding it steady with just her fingertips. The medical examination results were even more disturbing. Human bones were incredibly dense, almost like metal. Their muscle fibers were packed so tightly that each strand could lift weights that would require machinery for most species. Their hearts pumped liquid through their bodies at pressures that would burst the circulatory systems of other aliens. But it was their brains that really frightened Ylanmoth. Human neural tissue processed information at speeds that approached their own computers. They could calculate complex problems in their heads while carrying on conversations and monitoring their surroundings for threats. This is impossible, she told Dr. Martinez. No biological system should be able to function at these levels. Your species should have burned out your own nervous systems millions of years ago. Really? Dr. Martinez looked interested. That's fascinating. We've always wondered why other species seem so fragile. As if to prove her point, a human child ran past them in the hallway. The little boy was wearing only light clothing, despite the fact that the temperature would have frozen most aliens solid. He was carrying a backpack that probably weighed 50 pounds, laughing and playing like it was nothing. How old is that child? Ylanmoth asked. Oh, Tommy. He's about 7 years old. He's here with his parents for the tour. Ylanmoth watched the child disappear around a corner. That little human was stronger than most adult members of her species. And he was just a baby by human standards. The technology demonstrations were equally unsettling. The humans showed them what they called primitive kinetic weapons, simple devices that accelerated small pieces of metal at high speeds. When they test-fired one at a target, it punched straight through armor plating that was designed to stop plasma cannons. We don't understand, Zethkalar said. How can such a simple weapon be so effective? The human engineer, a man named Colonel Thompson, smiled. Physics, mostly. Energy weapons are flashy, but there's something to be said for just hitting things really, really hard. They demonstrated their computers next. What the humans called basic processing systems were running calculations that required quantum entanglement, technology that the Confederation had only recently begun to understand. But the humans had been using it for decades. We've had quantum computers since the early 21st century, Dr. Martinez explained. Took us a while to figure out how to make them work reliably, but once we did, everything became much easier. The early 21st century? Ylanmoth repeated. But that was when you first achieved spaceflight. You had this technology before you even left your own planet? Oh, we had lots of interesting technology before we went to space, Colonel Thompson said. We just don't like to rush into things. Better to be prepared, you know? That evening, Zethkalar and his team were invited to dinner with human families. It was meant to be a cultural exchange, a chance for both species to learn about each other in a relaxed setting. Instead, it became a nightmare of revelation. The human children played games that involved throwing objects at high speeds and catching them barehanded. They ran around in the crushing gravity like it was nothing, laughing and shouting. One little girl casually jumped over a fence that was taller than most adult aliens. The adults were even more frightening. They discussed their daily jobs as if they were normal activities. But Ylanmoth realized they were describing tasks that would require specialized equipment and safety protocols for any other species. I work in construction, one man said, mostly building skyscrapers and bridges. It's good work, keeps you in shape. Construction in this gravity? Zethkalar asked weakly. Sure. The heavy lifting is good exercise. My son wants to follow in my footsteps when he graduates from school. Another woman mentioned that she was a recreational mountain climber. When pressed for details, she explained that she spent her free time climbing up vertical rock faces thousands of feet high, often in severe weather conditions, just for fun. Doesn't that seem dangerous? Ylanmoth asked. Oh, a little, the woman admitted. But that's what makes it exciting. Last month I climbed Everest. That's our tallest mountain. The view from the top was amazing. As the evening went on, Zethkalar began to understand the true horror of what they had discovered. These humans weren't just adapted to their deadly world, they thrived on it. They sought out danger and challenge because their normal environment had made them so incredibly tough that they needed extreme conditions just to feel alive. When they returned to their quarters that night, Ylanmoth sat down heavily and pulled off her environmental helmet. Captain, she said quietly, I don't think these humans are a primitive species that just learned space travel. What do you mean? I think they're something much worse. I think they're a species that evolved to survive in conditions that would kill everything else in the galaxy. And now they've figured out how to leave their world. Zethkalar looked out the window at the human city sprawling below them. Millions of these incredibly strong, impossibly tough, dangerously intelligent creatures lived here. And according to Admiral Chen, this was just one city on one continent of their world. How many humans are there? He asked Dr. Martinez the next morning. On Earth? About 8 billion, she replied cheerfully. But we have colonies on dozens of other worlds now. The population is growing pretty quickly. 8 billion. Zethkalar felt dizzy. 8 billion creatures that could each probably take apart his ship with their bare hands if they wanted to. And they were spreading to other worlds. Dr. Martinez, he said carefully, what are human intentions regarding the rest of the galaxy? She smiled that terrifying human smile again. Oh, we're very interested in meeting new species and learning about different cultures. It's such an exciting time for both our peoples. But something in her eyes told Zethkalar that humanity's interest in the galaxy might not be entirely peaceful. After all, when you were strong enough to crush mountains with your hands and smart enough to outsmart computers, what was there to stop you from taking whatever you wanted? The real question was, did humanity want anything from the galaxy at all? Or were they content to stay at the edge of known space, growing stronger and more numerous, watching everyone else with those calculating human eyes? The news of humanity's discovery spread through the Galactic Confederation like wildfire. Within days, every major civilization knew about the strange species living at the edge of known space. The reaction was immediate and predictable: fear, curiosity, and greed in equal measure. High Admiral Vorthan of the Vorthak Empire was the first to demand action. The Vorthak had ruled a quarter of the galaxy for 3,000 years through superior technology and ruthless military tactics. They had never encountered a species they couldn't conquer or control. These humans are clearly primitive, Vorthan declared during an emergency session of the Confederation Council. They use metal projectiles instead of energy weapons. Their ships are built like ancient warships from the early space age. We should bring them into the Empire before they become a threat to anyone. Fleet Admiral Kristoff of the Crystalline Hegemony disagreed. Her silicon-based people were scientists first and warriors second. The reports from Captain Zethkalar suggest these humans are far more advanced than they appear. We should study them carefully before making any decisions. The debate raged for hours. Some council members wanted to establish trade relations. Others wanted to quarantine humanity until they could be properly evaluated. A few radical voices even suggested that humans might be dangerous enough to require military intervention. While the politicians argued, Admiral Sarah Chen was having a very different conversation in her office aboard the human defense station orbiting Earth. Ma'am, her intelligence officer reported, Confederation communications are lighting up like a Christmas tree. Every major power is talking about us. Some of the chatter is friendly, but a lot of it isn't. Chen nodded calmly. She had expected this. Humanity had been preparing for this moment for almost a century, ever since their radio telescopes first detected signs of galactic civilization. They knew that first contact would eventually lead to conflict. What's our current readiness status? She asked. All defense platforms are online and fully armed. The Sol defense fleet is at combat stations but maintaining normal patrol patterns. Our sleeper ships in the outer systems are powered down but ready for activation on your command. And our intelligence assets? Still in position throughout Confederation space. They've been monitoring alien communications and military movements for decades. So far, no one suspects that our merchant vessels have been mapping their defenses. Chen smiled. Let the aliens think humans were primitive. Let them believe that kinetic weapons and metal ships were signs of technological backwardness. By the time they realized the truth, it would be too late. The first test came 3 weeks later. A Vorthak battle group entered the Sol system without invitation or warning. 5 massive cruisers, each the size of a human city, dropped out of hyperspace near the outer planets and began broadcasting demands. Attention, primitive humans, came the transmission from the lead ship. I am War Commander Thax of the Vorthak Empire. By order of High Admiral Vorthan, you will surrender your weapons and submit to Imperial authority. Your species will be integrated into the Empire for your own protection, Admiral. Chen's response was swift and educational. The human frigate, Indomitable, was the smallest ship in the Sol defense fleet. At just 300 meters long, it was barely a tenth the size of the smallest Vorthak cruiser. When it accelerated toward the alien battle group, the Vorthak crews probably thought they were seeing a desperate suicide attack. They were wrong. The Indomitable opened fire at a range of 50,000 kilometers. Its weapons were indeed kinetic. Simple chunks of metal accelerated to incredible speeds by magnetic fields. But what the Vorthak didn't understand was that when you fired a piece of tungsten at 10% of light speed, it hit with the force of a nuclear bomb. The first Vorthak cruiser's shields flared and died. The kinetic projectiles punched through the ship's armor like it was made of paper. Emergency alarms screamed across all Vorthak channels as secondary explosions tore through the vessel's interior. But the Indomitable wasn't finished. As it closed with the enemy formation, It launched something the Vorthak had never seen before: cyber warfare packages that infiltrated their computer systems and began rewriting their software. Within minutes, 2 more Vorthak cruisers had lost control of their weapon systems. Their targeting computers were showing false readings, their shields were cycling randomly, and their engines were producing erratic thrust patterns. "What kind of witchcraft is this?" War Commander Thax demanded over the communication channels. "No witchcraft," Admiral Chen replied calmly from her command center. "Just good engineering. Your computer security is about 50 years behind what we consider standard." The remaining Vorthak ships tried to retreat, but the Indomitable had already deployed something else: tiny drones that attached themselves to the alien hulls and began cutting through the armor with molecular disassemblers. "This is impossible," Thax shouted. "Your ship is primitive. Your weapons are obsolete." "Commander," Chen said gently, "I think you misunderstand what primitive means. Just because we don't use flashy energy weapons doesn't mean we don't know how to fight." The battle lasted less than an hour. When it was over, 3 Vorthak cruisers were disabled and drifting. 1 had been completely destroyed. The 5th was limping away at sublight speed, its engines damaged and its pride shattered. But Admiral Chen wasn't done delivering her message. As the surviving Vorthak ship struggled to escape the Sol system, it received a data transmission that made War Commander Thax's blood run cold. The transmission contained detailed tactical information about every major Vorthak military installation, complete with defensive layouts, patrol schedules, and structural weak points. Along with the intelligence data came a simple message: "We've been watching you for a very long time. We know where all your worlds are. We know how to reach them. And we know how to hurt them. Please don't make us prove it." The news of the Vorthak defeat reached the Confederation Council within hours. The reaction was immediate panic. If a single human frigate could destroy an entire Vorthak battle group, what could their full fleet accomplish? "This changes everything," Admiral Kristoff said during the emergency session. "These humans aren't primitive at all. They've been pretending to be weak while studying our weaknesses." But High Admiral Vorthan was furious rather than frightened. "One lucky victory doesn't make them invincible," he declared. "I'm mobilizing the 5th Fleet. We'll show these upstart humans what real military power looks like." The 5th Fleet was the pride of the Vorthak Empire: 24 heavy cruisers and 3 command dreadnoughts, crewed by the Empire's most experienced warriors. When they arrived at the edge of the Sol system 3 days later, they expected to find human forces cowering behind their planet's defenses. Instead, they found empty space. "Where are they?" Vorthan demanded from the bridge of his flagship. "Sensors show no human ships anywhere in the system." His tactical officer looked puzzled. "Sir, I'm detecting some unusual readings from the asteroid belt, but they don't match any known ship signatures." That was when Admiral Chen's voice came over the communication channels, broadcast from seemingly everywhere at once. "Hi, Admiral Vorthan," she said pleasantly. "Welcome to the Sol system. Before you proceed any further, I thought you might like to know what you're really facing." Suddenly, human ships began appearing everywhere. They rose out of the asteroid belt where they had been hiding among the rocks. They emerged from the clouds of gas giants where no sane species would hide their vessels. Some even appeared to be coming directly out of the sun itself, their hulls glowing with residual heat. 24 cruisers, Chen continued conversationally. 3 dreadnoughts, approximately 15,000 crew members, maximum fleet speed of 0.7 light, weapons range of 50,000 kilometers, shield strength rated at... Oh, that's embarrassing. Your shields won't even slow down our projectiles. Vorthan stared at his tactical display in horror. The humans had over 100 ships surrounding his fleet, and sensors were detecting more arriving every minute. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was that Admiral Chen was reading off the exact specifications of his ships, classified information that should have been impossible for any enemy to obtain. "How do you know our capabilities?" he demanded. "Because we've been studying you for decades," Chen replied. "Did you really think those human merchant ships that have been visiting your spaceports were just there to trade? We've been mapping your defenses, analyzing your technology, and planning for this exact scenario since before your grandfather was born." The human fleet began moving in perfect coordination, executing maneuvers that seemed to defy the laws of physics. Their ships moved like they were reading each other's minds, responding to threats before they even developed. "Last chance, Admiral," Chen said. "Take your fleet and go home. Tell the Confederation that humanity is not interested in conquest, but we are very interested in being left alone, and if you force us to demonstrate what our weapons can really do, we'll have to start targeting things other than ships." The threat was clear. The humans weren't just claiming they could destroy his fleet. They were threatening to attack Vorthak worlds directly. High Admiral Vorthon had built his career on never backing down from a fight. But as he looked at the tactical display showing his ships surrounded, the Confederation's response to humanity's show of force was swift and massive. Within 2 weeks, 3 full battle fleets from different civilizations converged on the Sol system. The Vorthak Empire contributed their 2nd and 3rd fleets. The Crystalline Hegemony sent their deep space armada. Even the normally peaceful Hive Collective dispatched their defender swarms. In total, over 300 warships surrounded humanity's home system, representing the largest military force assembled in galactic history. The fleet commanders were confident that sheer numbers would overwhelm whatever tricks the humans might have. Prepared Fleet Admiral Zarthan of the Crystalline Hegemony opened communications as the combined armada took position at the edge of the Sol system. Admiral Chen, he broadcast, "You are surrounded by the combined might of 3 civilizations. We are here to enforce a Confederation quarantine of your species pending full evaluation. Surrender now and your people will be treated fairly." Admiral Chen's response came from Earth, calm and professional as always. "Admiral Zarthan, I appreciate your position, but I'm afraid we'll have to decline your generous offer. Humanity doesn't recognize the Confederation's authority over our space." "Then you choose war," High Admiral Vorthon interjected. He had returned with an even larger fleet, determined to wash away the shame of his previous defeat. "Your tricks won't work against 300 ships." "Tricks?" Chen sounded genuinely puzzled. "Admiral, I think you misunderstand what happened during our last encounter. Those weren't tricks. That was just a demonstration." The combined fleet began advancing into the Sol system in a massive formation designed to overwhelm any defense. As they passed the orbit of the outermost planet, their sensors began detecting unusual readings throughout the system. "Admiral," reported the sensor officer aboard the Crystalline flagship, "I'm reading massive energy buildup from multiple locations. The entire asteroid belt appears to be moving." That was when the humans revealed the true extent of their preparations. What the aliens had thought was an asteroid belt turned out to be thousands of camouflaged defense platforms, each one armed with the same relativistic weapons that had devastated the Vorthak cruisers. But these platforms weren't firing simple chunks of metal. They were firing guided projectiles that could change course mid-flight, seeking out the most vulnerable parts of enemy ships. The projectiles were so small that most sensors couldn't track them, but they hit with the force of tactical nuclear weapons. The first wave of human fire tore through the advancing fleet like paper. Shields that were designed to stop the most powerful energy weapons proved useless against matter. Traveling at 90% of light speed, ships that had survived dozens of battles were crippled or destroyed in seconds, but the real shock came when human ships began emerging from locations that should have been impossible. Admiral Chen had not been lying when she said the previous battle was just a demonstration. The human fleet that appeared now was 10 times larger than what the aliens had faced before. Ships rose from the gas giant atmospheres where the crushing pressure should have destroyed any vessel. Others emerged from the sun's corona, their hulls glowing white-hot but somehow intact. Most terrifying of all, some human ships appeared to materialize directly inside the alien formations, having somehow hidden within the quantum foam of space itself. How is this possible? Fleet Admiral Zarthan demanded as his flagship shuddered under impact from weapons that shouldn't exist. 50 years of preparation, Admiral Chen replied. Did you think we spent all that time just building ships? We've been turning our entire star system into a fortress. Every planet, every moon, every asteroid has been weaponized. You're not fighting a fleet, Admiral. You're fighting a star system. The human tactics were unlike anything the aliens had ever encountered. Instead of forming traditional battle lines, human ships moved like schools of fish, appearing and disappearing in coordinated attacks that seemed to anticipate every alien move. When Vorthak cruisers tried to use their superior shields and armor to push through human formations, they found human ships deliberately ramming into them at incredible speeds. The humans were using their own vessels as weapons, sacrificing their ships to deliver boarding parties directly into enemy hulls. They're insane, War Commander Thax reported as his ship was boarded for the second time. They're actually ramming our ships with their own vessels. But the human boarding parties were the most terrifying part of the entire battle. When they cut through alien hulls and entered enemy ships, they didn't behave like any military force the aliens had ever fought. Human soldiers moved through the corridors of alien ships like they owned them. They knew exactly where to go and what to target. They disabled life support systems, took control of engineering sections, and captured bridge crews with precision that suggested intimate knowledge of alien ship designs. Most disturbing of all, the humans seemed to be enjoying themselves. Yeehaw! Came one transmission from a human soldier who had just taken control of a crystalline cruiser's engine room. This is almost too easy. Their security codes are like something out of a children's book. The psychological warfare was just as devastating as the physical attacks. Human ships began broadcasting detailed information about every alien world in the galaxy. Population centers, military installations, industrial facilities, even the locations of government leaders' private residences. "Attention Vorthak Third Fleet," came a cheerful human voice over the communication channels. "Did you know that Admiral Korthex's wife is currently shopping at the Central Market on Vorthon Prime? She's buying flowers for their anniversary dinner tonight. Lovely couple. It would be such a shame if something happened to disrupt their evening." The message was clear. If the humans could track individual aliens on their homeworlds, no one in the galaxy was safe from them. But it was the relativistic bombardment that finally broke the alien fleet's morale. The humans began firing their kinetic weapons not just at ships, but at empty space where alien vessels would be in several minutes. The projectiles traveled so fast that they arrived at their targets before the aliens even knew they were under attack. "They're shooting at where we're going to be, not where we are," reported a panicked Hive Collective drone commander. "How can they predict our movements that accurately?" "Because we've been watching you fight for decades," Admiral Chen explained patiently. "We know how every species in the galaxy conducts warfare. We know your tactics, your preferred formations, your standard evasion patterns. You're fighting like we're some unknown enemy, but we've been studying you like lab specimens for most of your lives." The battle turned into a rout. Ship after ship in the combined alien fleet suffered critical damage or was completely destroyed. Those vessels that tried to retreat found their hyperspace drives mysteriously malfunctioning. Another gift from human cyber warfare specialists. Within 6 hours, 2/3 of the attacking fleet had been eliminated. The survivors found themselves trapped in human-controlled space, their ships damaged and their crews demoralized. Admiral Chen, Fleet Admiral Zarthan finally transmitted, his voice heavy with defeat. "We surrender. What are your terms?" "No terms necessary," Chen replied. "Take your remaining ships and go home. Tell the Confederation Council what you've seen here. But Admiral, there is one thing you should understand before you leave." "What's that?" "This entire battle was fought with conventional weapons using technology that your civilizations already understand. We haven't even shown you our real capabilities yet." As the surviving alien ships limped away from the Sol system, they carried with them a final message from humanity. It wasn't delivered through communication channels or data transmissions. Instead, it was written across space itself in letters of light that could be seen from dozens of star systems away. The message was simple. Humanity stands ready, but the subtext was clear to anyone who understood what they had just witnessed. Humanity wasn't just defending their home system. They were announcing their presence to the galaxy. They were declaring that the age of alien dominance was over. The species that had lived at the edge of known space, quietly watching and learning while everyone else fought their petty wars, had finally decided to step onto the galactic stage, and they had brought weapons that could reduce entire civilizations to ashes. The question now was what they intended to do with that power. The aliens who had survived the battle carried that terrifying uncertainty with them as they returned to report to their governments. Humanity had proven they could destroy anyone who threatened them. But what did they want? What were their goals? And most frightening of all, what would they do if the rest of the galaxy refused to leave them alone? The answers to those questions would determine whether the galaxy entered a new age of peace, or faced a war that would make all previous conflicts look like children's games. The Galactic Confederation was in chaos. 3 major fleets had been destroyed or crippled by a single human star system. Panic spread through alien governments as intelligence reports confirmed their worst fears. Humanity had been seeding the galaxy with hidden ships for decades. Captain Zethkalar found himself at the center of the crisis. As the alien who had made first contact with humanity, he was suddenly the most important military officer in the Confederation. Everyone wanted to know what the humans were really planning. "Captain," asked Supreme Chancellor Vex during an emergency council session, "in your opinion, are the humans preparing to invade Confederation space?" Zethkalar considered the question carefully. He had spent weeks on Earth talking with human scientists and military officers. What he had learned there still kept him awake at night. I don't think they want to conquer us, he said finally. But I think they're preparing for something much worse. What could be worse than conquest? Judgment. The word sent a chill through the council chamber. Before anyone could ask what he meant, Admiral Chen's image appeared on the main display. She was calling from Earth requesting a direct diplomatic meeting. Honorable members of the Confederation Council, she said with her usual calm demeanor, I believe it's time we had an honest conversation about humanity's role in galactic affairs. Supreme Chancellor Vex was the first to recover from his surprise. Admiral Chen, your species has just committed acts of war against 3 Confederation members. What possible justification can you offer for such aggression? Self-defense, Chen replied simply. You sent military fleets to enforce a quarantine that we never agreed to. When we declined your authority over our space, you chose to use force. We simply responded in kind. You destroyed hundreds of ships. We disabled most of them, and we could have destroyed them all if we had chosen to. The fact that most of your crews are still alive should tell you something about our intentions. Fleet Admiral Kristoff leaned forward. What are your intentions, Admiral? What does humanity want from the galaxy? For the first time since first contact, Admiral Chen's expression grew serious. That's a complicated question, Admiral. Perhaps it would be better if Captain Zeth Kalar joined us on Earth for a more detailed discussion. As the first alien to visit our world, he's earned the right to learn the truth about who we really are. 3 days later, Zeth Kalar found himself back on humanity's impossible homeworld, sitting in a secure conference room deep beneath the human military headquarters. Admiral Chen was there along with several other high-ranking human officials he hadn't met before. Captain, Chen began, what do you know about galactic history? The deep history going back millions of years? Not much, Zeth Kalar admitted. The records from that era are mostly fragmentary. We know there were advanced civilizations before the current ones, but they seem to have vanished without a trace. They didn't vanish, said Dr. Elizabeth Harper, humanity's chief xenoarchaeologist. They destroyed each other, and they nearly destroyed the galaxy in the process. She activated a holographic display showing star charts that went back millions of years. Zeth Kalar gasped as he saw entire sectors of space marked as dead zones, areas where no life existed at all. The ancients, as we call them, reached a level of technological development that made current galactic civilizations look primitive. Dr. Harper continued. They had weapons that could destroy entire star systems. They fought wars that lasted for millennia and left whole regions of space uninhabitable. But some of them survived the final war, Admiral Chen added. A small group that called themselves the Shepherds retreated to the outer edges of the galaxy to wait and watch. They wanted to make sure that the mistakes of the past were never repeated. Zeth Kalar felt his blood turn cold. You're saying that humans are the descendants of the Shepherds, yes. We've been watching galactic civilization develop for millions of years, waiting to see if the younger species would make the same mistakes as the ancients. And what's your conclusion? Admiral Chen's expression grew grim. You're heading down the same path. The Confederation is already showing signs of the same expansion-driven conflicts that destroyed the ancients. Military buildup, resource competition, territorial disputes. All the warning signs are there. She gestured to another display showing current galactic political tensions. The Vorthak Empire is preparing for war with the crystalline hegemony over disputed mining rights. The Hive Collective is rapidly expanding into neutral space. 3 smaller civilizations have developed planet-killing weapons in just the last century. But that's just normal political competition, Zeth Kalar protested. Every civilization needs resources to grow and prosper. That's exactly what the ancients thought, Dr. Harper said sadly. Right up until they turned half the galaxy into a graveyard. Admiral Chen leaned forward. Captain, what you saw during our recent battles wasn't us showing off our military power. It was us demonstrating our ability to intervene if necessary. Our weapons, our tactics, our intelligence networks, everything is designed for one purpose, which is to humble aggressive civilizations before they become existential threats, to force them to step back from the brink before they destroy themselves and everyone else. The revelation hit Zeth Kalar like a physical blow. You're not planning to conquer the galaxy. You're planning to police it. Only if we have to, Chen said. We much prefer diplomatic solutions. But if a civilization develops weapons of mass destruction or shows signs of uncontrolled expansion, we have protocols in place to intervene. What kind of protocols? Admiral Chen activated another display, this one showing human assets throughout Confederation space. Zeth Kalar saw dozens of sleeper ships hidden in asteroid fields and empty systems. monitoring stations disguised as space debris, even human agents living secretly on alien worlds. We call it the shepherding protocol, she explained. Stage 1 is observation and intelligence gathering, which we've been doing for decades. Stage 2 is demonstration of capability, like what happened with your fleets. Stage 3 is selective intervention to remove specific threats. And Stage 4? Chen's expression darkened. Complete reset. If a civilization proves incapable of controlling its aggressive tendencies, we remove it from the galactic equation entirely. You mean genocide. We mean surgery. Remove the leadership. Disable the military infrastructure, destroy the weapons of mass destruction. The population survives, but their ability to threaten others is eliminated permanently. Dr. Harper pulled up historical records of previous human interventions. We've had to implement Stage 4 protocols 3 times in the last million years. Each time we tried every other option first. Zeth Kalar stared at the records, seeing the clinical documentation of entire civilizations being systematically dismantled. How many people died? As few as possible, Chen said. We don't enjoy this work, Captain. But we've seen what happens when no one stands watch. We've seen the dead zones where billions of stars once shone. What happens now? Zeth Kalar asked. What do you want from the Confederation? We want you to prove that you're different from the ancients, Admiral Chen replied. We want to see controlled expansion instead of unlimited growth. Cooperation instead of competition. Peaceful resolution of conflicts instead of military solutions. And if we can't prove that, then we'll help you learn. The threat was delivered so calmly that it took a moment for Zeth Kalar to understand what she meant. Humanity wasn't offering to guide galactic civilization, they were offering to force it onto a better path. Captain, Dr. Harper said gently, we know this is a lot to process, but you need to understand, we're not the villains in this story. We're the immune system. We're the antibodies that prevent the galaxy from destroying itself. And what if we refuse your guidance? What if the Confederation decides to fight back? Admiral Chen smiled that terrifying human smile. Captain, you've seen what one star system can do to 3 major fleets. Do you really want to find out what 8 billion humans spread across dozens of worlds can accomplish when they're truly motivated? The meeting ended with Zeth Kalar carrying humanity's final message back to the Confederation Council. It was both an offer and an ultimatum, wrapped in diplomatic language but unmistakably clear in its meaning. Humanity would help guide galactic civilization toward a more sustainable future. They would share their advanced technology and their knowledge of past mistakes. They would serve as mediators in conflicts and advisors for peaceful development. But they would also watch. And they would intervene if necessary. The choice was simple. Accept humanity's guidance willingly, or have it imposed by force. As Zeth Kalar prepared his report for the Council, he thought about the human children he had seen playing in Earth's deadly gravity. Those children would grow up to be stronger than any alien alive. They would inherit technology that could reshape stars and weapons, that could humble entire fleets. They would also inherit the responsibility of watching over a galaxy full of species that might never understand how close they had come to destroying themselves. The age of unlimited expansion was over. The age of human oversight had begun. Whether that would prove to be a blessing or a curse remained to be seen. But one thing was certain. The galaxy would never be the same again.